Now, Robin, how do you take notes from books? How do you sift through all the information and somehow, retain them in your head so you're not just reading a bunch of stuff and forgetting a bunch of stuff like the way that you do at school? You jam all that crap in your brain, not very efficiently, maybe, 2 minutes before the exam, and you try to recite all those information for the next 2 hours, and then you recite it and you forget all about it. How do you take notes from books as to veer away from the disaster that we've all encountered at school, where cramming is the only key to, short-term success? How do we take notes from books as to ensure long-term developing of wisdom, of actually learning something from those books, not just merely regurgitating stuff, not just merely, I know a bunch of facts, but actually use knowledge to transform ourselves? That is the topic of today's video. I'm super excited because a lot of you people have been leaving me comments talking about how we want to know your process of taking notes from books. How do you take notes from novels? How do you take notes from fact-based books? How do you take notes from philosophy books? Yada, 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 yada. So today we're going to address all of it in a whole shebang. I don't know how long the video is going to be, so I'm going to try to convey everything I could as succinctly as I could, as eloquent as I could, and as easily understandable as I could. Just as a first disclaimer, I don't have everything figured out. Don't come to me as the expert of, note-taking on books. Don't come to me as the guru head with regards to self-education. Everyone has a different path, and if some of my tips don't work for you, don't stick with them. All right, take what you want and go away. I don't have every piece of information you need, and don't look up to me as though I'm some definitive figure that has everything figured out. So that is the disclaimer out of the way. So let's dive into how I go about taking notes, how I go about educating, self-education, to go about self-education, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the Commonplace book. Commonplace book, I don't really want to talk too much about it because we've covered the Commonplace book ad nauseum at this point. So the first thing that we have to make clear, something we've got wrong from school, something that we've mistaken for one for the other, which is that there's a very clear distinction. There's somewhat of a clear distinction between fact-based learning and experience-based learning. There's fact-based learning and there's experience-based learning. On episode 1 of Reading Basics, I talked about how different books demand different reading strategies. Well, here's the first distinction. There's fact-based learning and there's experience-based learning. And these two require radically different note-taking strategies. These two are radically different books. They need to be read differently. And the way that they transform you, they take on different forms. One is not, they're not mutually exclusive, but they're distinct enough as to require different learning strategies. So for the first section of the video, we're going to address experience-based learning. And then the second part of the video, we're really going to talk about, fact-based learning. And experience-based learning, it's intuitive. But fact-based learning, there's a little bit of a thing that I do with all the, fact-based books that I have, philosophy books or history books or books that convey information. There's a couple of things that I do with these books that I want to share with you people. And then again, I don't have all the information figured out. Don't come to me as the definitive, authoritative head, because you will be disappointed. This is what have worked out for myself. They're not probably not going to work out for you. Try them out. If you don't think they're good, well, just, like I said, go away. Figure out your own method. Whatever method works for you, that is the best for you. Don't take my advice if it doesn't work. So, first of all, experience-based learning. What are we talking about here? Now, one thing that I have against the English education at school, high school specifically, because that's the form of schooling that I'm most familiar with, is that they begin to mix up experience-based learning and fact-based learning. So you have you look at these students at school for English classes. They're reading books such as All the Light We Cannot See or Ransom or some Shakespearean text, and then along the book spine they have tons of sticky notes, tons of analysis, and tons of these overarching analysis theme. That is a symptom of mixing up fact-based learning and experience-based learning. Novels are written to offer you an experience-based learning. Novels are written to to transport your own head into another person's head, as to learn moral lessons, not through logical analysis, but through a process of sympathizing with the character, and the process of going through the adventure, the process of slowly uncovering the morals of the story, slowly getting your mind blown, gaining critical insights. And then once you read the book, once you absorb yourself into the book enough, you reach the end, can you really go back to the book and to do logical analysis? Right? So you have to really read the book first, to immerse yourself into the book first, before you can go back and to recall what you've learned, all the mind-blowing points, all the quotes that have changed your thinking entirely. That, once you've, without reading the entire thing, without experiencing the book in its totality, it's impossible for you to pick up quotes, to memorize quotes, and to somehow get the author's message simultaneously. Because what a lot of students do nowadays, at least this is a phenomenon that I've observed, is that when they try to read a novel, they're paralyzed by this fear of, what if it gets tested? What if, well, my analysis is not good enough? What if? So they miss out on the point of a novel in its actuality. It's to actually get you into the story, get you absorbed into the tale. And then once you absorb yourself, invest yourself into the book, once you reach the end, can you go back to it and to reinvest and reread and to recount all those memories that changed your worldview? Can you really produce an excellent analysis from that place? It simply wouldn't work when you read the book to be looking out for quotes, looking out for values and themes. That's getting it completely ass backwards. First time reading for experience-based learning is to get yourself into the experience first, not to really look out for all these quotes from authors and to look for values and themes. That's ass backwards. Things only make sense in retrospect. You have to absorb yourself into the tale first, and then in retrospect, can you really make sense of any of it? Right? Can you really make sense of any of it? So the way that I like to take notes for experience-based learning books is that these books, if they're good, if they really captured me, if they really have a ring to it. Now, once you're self-educating, you don't really want to read books that don't speak to you. We've talked about this before. You don't have to read all the classics. Pick out the books that you think would transform you, the most drastically. So first time when I read a book like this, I would read it from its cover to cover. Depending on the genre of the book, the speed would vary. So I basically would read, for example, a book like 1984 or a book like A Secret History by Donna Tartt. I would read it cover to cover as fast as I could. And then depending on the pace of the book, I'll pace my reading as to absorb myself into the narrative. And as I'm reading, I will be labeling quotes that really triggered something in my head, that aha moment. Those quotes I would usually underline and I put a little flag next to it. So that's for first time reading. First time reading, little flags, and then next to the little flags, I have a few little notes just along the spine here, just along the margin here, denoting why did I label this quote? What is it about this quote that really captured me? Just little, four-word little prose next to the highlight, just to denote, to remind myself, why did I highlight it? What's the purpose of it? And why? Just why did I highlight it? So as I go back to the book and read it the second time, I can really recall how did that quote transform me, and how did it really come to resonate with me? How did it really come to sort of put things into pieces that I've never realized before? So that is, in a sense, how experience-based learning books should be tackled. You really want to find out an intuitive sense, and it's going to be different for everybody. You really want to find out intuitively what touched you about the book. And first time when you read something like 1984, or when you read something like the the secret history, do not try to look for themes. Do not try to look for logical analysis. Do not try to look for overarching things. Do not collect quotes. Do not memorize quotes. That's only going to slow you down. You need to absorb yourself into the narrative and learn through a process of sympathy instead of learning through a process of detached analyzing text. Analyzing text has its purpose, but only on the second reading. First time reading, don't worry about it. Absorption is all you need for narrative or experience-based learning books. And fact-based learning books are a little bit different, which we would address in next week's episode. Fact-based learning is a little bit more complex, so it's going to take a little longer. So for this week, experience-based learning, I hope you guys have gotten something out of it, have gotten something quite interesting. And stick around for next week's episode on fact-based learning, because there's a whole lot of stuff. There's just a lot of stuff to cover, and I'm really excited to cover it. So stay tuned for next week's episode. Robin here from the Quirky Inquiry, signing off right about now.